Good morning, everybody. It's Laurie White, president of the Greater Providence Chamber of Commerce, back with you today with another episode of Chamber TV. This is episode number 123, and we are talking about a very interesting topic today, one that everybody can relate to, and that's the issue of money management, how we think about money, some of the mental roadblocks that we might have in our head about, how to ask for money in a way that will keep us confident and we'll get what we are looking for and what we deserve from a pay point of view. So all kinds of, very interesting edges to this conversation about money. So this is, as I said, episode number 123. We are live on Twitter, we are live on Facebook, and we are live on YouTube. And we have an expert guest with us today, Jennifer Sahady. She is a master money guru. Good morning, Jennifer. How are you?
Good morning, Laurie. I'm great. And I love how well you planned having a money presentation being 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3, exactly. Fantastic. This is the appropriate month for it too, right? Given the fact that this Financial Literacy Month and all kinds of, aspects of this topic. And I might add, and we were talking about this a little bit off camera before we started, was, the idea that, this might be something particularly germane to women. And you agreed with that notion that sometimes, women approach this subject differently. So first, let me ask you a little bit about yourself. You have been in this industry for a very long time, working for large employers, doing education, doing training, doing financial planning, really, understanding the fundamentals of money management. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you for that, Laurie. I even have a little slide to go with it, and it matches my shirt. So as Laurie mentioned, my name is Jennifer Sahady. I went to Bryant University. So like many Bryant grads, I went across the street to Fidelity, and so began my career in finance. And it's funny because it's a lesson in numbers and different accounts and in investments, but it's also a deep lesson in people, right? Our behaviors, what's important to us. So my role was originally in retirement education. And it was my job to travel the whole country, working with all of our clients, helping people understand their retirement plans. And in that, understanding all of money, because really retirement planning is the last part, like that long-term vision, learning how not to work. Well, to do that, you really have to understand what you're doing today and short-term planning for emergencies and intermediate-term planning for education for kids or supportive parents. So I had this amazing opportunity to learn from thousands of different faces that were surprisingly in the same places financially. And that is what inspired me to become an entrepreneur and really provide the education and the financial empowerment that I saw lacking in our education and in our businesses.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I was growing up, my parents always taught me to be capable of being independent, right? So do you buy into that concept that everybody needs to, really think through that on a day-to-day basis? Whether you're, beginning a career or a family or getting married or any other of life's, milestone events, but the notion that always be in a position where you yourself can be independent.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I can tell you, Laurie, when I would work with people, we'd have these group presentation sessions where I could speak with hundreds of people like today, which I love because you can really amplify your message. But then we'd also have opportunities to speak to people one-on-one. And I couldn't tell you how many times someone would come up to me and I'd be one of the first people they shared that they had lost a spouse. And this was universal when it came to men or women. If they were talking to me, one of the big issues was my spouse took care of all of the money, right? So now not only don't I have my partner, my best friend, my everything, but also I don't know how to pay the bills. I don't know how to write a check. I don't know where the accounts are. And that was something I really took to heart. So what your parents taught you is what I wish everyone taught their kids. Absolutely. Learn to be independent, learn to share information. That is such an important lesson. Yeah, that's the one takeaway. If you suddenly have to run to another meeting, take that as your takeaway today.
Yeah. And I remember one other thing from my early career at the Chamber when we brought on various Chamber members to talk about such topics. And I remember a woman, and again, it was many, many, many years ago, and her whole theme was, remember this, a man is not a plan.
I love that. You've had some really good influences, Laurie. That's fantastic. I agree.
I don't know why all these things, all these little mnemonic devices stuck in my brain all these years. But in any event, here we are. You have a very distinguished background. I know that folks can feel comfortable with you, that you've seen all of these questions and that you've helped folks wrestle with some very difficult questions that, maybe people feel a little sheepish about asking or admitting or confronting or actually just taking it on because, it is, it's a challenge and it's something that in some respects everybody wants to avoid. So at this point, let me turn it over to you, Jennifer, and I know you have a great deck that you have prepared for us here at the Chamber. So take it away and we can circle back afterwards and ask questions from folks that are listening. Again, we are live on Twitter, we are live on Facebook, and we are live on YouTube, and we want to hear from you. If you have any questions, put them in the chat box. I will ask Jennifer to give us some feedback. So I'm encouraging everybody, not to be reluctant, put them out there, and we'll make sure that everybody gets their questions answered.
Thank you so much, Laurie. I love that. Life is not a spectator sport, honestly. If you have questions, please, please, please do let me know. In my years of doing this, I used to play a game called Stump the Trainer. Right? And I'd encourage people to ask a question that I didn't know the answer to so we both could learn. It only happened once or twice a year, disappointingly. But I encourage you to try to stump me. I know we have a big and broad audience today, so maybe we'll all learn something today. You can probably guess from that statement that I am a huge dork. I love talking about this stuff. I've learned so much talking freely and comfortably about money with so many people that I encourage you to do the same today. And I promise that I will honor all of your questions with a great answer, and I support your curiosity. And in that, I actually want to start the presentation with a question to all of you. So oftentimes when people talk to me about money, they want to know pre-tax or raw. How much? Do I have enough? And yes, the numbers matter. But to me, what's most important is starting with, what does money mean to you? And you can send that into the chat in Facebook. You can write it down off to the side, but really think about it for a moment. Like, when you look at a $100 bill, what does it mean to you? Right? Is that an opportunity to cover your bills and get ahead? Is that an opportunity to splurge and have some fun? I mean, this was something that Laurie was alluding to earlier when we were talking. To me, money is freedom, right? Knowing that I have money gives me choices. I had the choice to start a business because I am a planner and a saver, right? I have a choice of when and where to retire. And that's something that I want for everyone. That's why I see this as so much more than just financial literacy. I see it as financial empowerment. No, I'm not obsessed with money, right? I just want people to have a sense of what it is and where it is so that they can better control it and achieve their dreams. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. It's going to be pretty high level because I'm going to try to cover almost 20 years of experience and stories in less than 1 hour to give you both knowledge and hopefully some time back in your day. We can go into some nitty gritty if you want in the questions, but really think about it, right? What does money mean to you? Now, money is many things, right? There's a lot of things that money can do. And unfortunately, there's also a lot of things that money can't do. So what can money do? It can help us pay the bills, right? Like, we need money to pay the bills. And it is certainly one of the ingredients in the recipe for success. It's not the only one, but it is certainly part of it. There's very few dreams that you can achieve without having money to at least cover the bills. And finally, money is very easily quantified and compared, which is a great thing. It can help us make decisions. If I were to ask you, would you rather have a job that paid you $50,000 or a job that paid you $75,000? Which one would you choose? I don't even have to look in the chat to see a resounding, everyone would rather have that extra $25,000. Unless, of course, there was a bigger picture. What if I told you the job earning $50,000 was a job where it was your opportunity to go to fancy restaurants and hotels and just fill out surveys about what you liked about them? And the job that paid $75,000 was a job where you had to pump septic tanks. Now, is it still that easy of an answer? And that's part of the problem of what money can't do, right? Oftentimes when we're making decisions, we look for the easy numbers to make a quick decision when the situation might be broader and a little bit more complex, right? So that's why I like to talk about money, because it's not just basic math. It's not usually just 2 + 2 = 4. There are emotions. There are broader decisions to be made, whether in your personal financial planning or investing, right? So that's why we like to talk about this deeper level. And I'm not the only one. Luckily, there are other dorks out there, right, who likes to study this stuff. And there have been many studies done, right? Before I go into the exact studies and the work, I want to ask you, how much money do you need to achieve your goals and be happy? And feel free to put it into the chat. I love participation. I wish we could actually do this in person, but it's also pretty cool to be streaming across multiple different services too, broader reach. Right? But honestly, think about it. Have you ever put a number to it? Have you ever said, if I had $50,000 a year, I'd be happy. Or if I had $100,000 a year, I'd be happy, right? What's the number that will make you happy? Right? And it would help you achieve your goals, pay your bills, get the kids into school and out of school without debt. What's that number? Now we think about this, and you can think about this personally. Some studies have been done, right? So a study was done back in 1999, and they asked people who were earning $30,000, what salary would you need to be happy and comfortable? And I'm going to let you guess. Right? Do you think they were all happy with 30,000, or do you think they needed more? 30,000 is not a lot of money. So obviously, most people who are in this study said 30,000 is not it, but 50,000. Right? If I could go from 30,000 to 50,000, then I'd be comfortable. Then I'd be happy. I just need that little bit more, which is fascinating, right? Well, not really. Everyone would like more money. That's an easy one. But there must be a number, right? So we were able to check and see, okay, if people said if they were making 30, if they could go up to 50, then they would be happy. What if we polled people who are making 100,000, right? That's much more than 50. Maybe these people would say that they had enough, right? 100,000 is a lot of money. You can be quite comfortable at that number. Do you think these people said, I have enough money to be happy, or they need more? I'll give you a second to think about it. And if you think it's more, because who doesn't want more, how much more? What number do you think they might have given? Right? So the people who are making 30,000 said they needed 50,000. The people at 100,000, you likely guessed, were not happy with 100,000. They wanted 250,000 to be happy. And that's a pretty sneaky thing, right? There aren't many jobs in our country that pay that much. I know. I looked at people at companies from Intuit to your local auto repair shop. There are very few people in this country making 250,000. So that's a pretty hard benchmark to be happy. But I think it's a really telling story, right? Because the answer was, I need more to be happy. We often think once we get there, we will be happy. But I've met people who make millions, and they say the same thing. I wish I had more. I'm not sure if I have enough. And this is something that really stood out to me. It stood out to me in particular one day when I was at a company of great disparity. I was speaking with a line worker who, like this study, was making 30,000. They were having trouble making ends meet. They were barely saving for retirement. They were genuinely concerned about their future. And when I spoke with them one-on-one, I could feel that concern. It was very real to them, and it was very real to me. And in the very next meeting, I had a chance to speak with one of the top executives who had over $2 million saved for retirement. And as we talked, he shared with me that he was deeply concerned that he didn't have enough. And that statement was as real for him as it was for the gentleman I had just spoke to, who was making $30,000 and didn't even have $50,000 saved for retirement. And that really stood out to me. Like, I don't know how often we have these opportunities to have that light bulb moment where you say, I always thought if I had a little bit more, it would be enough. And then had that chance to see someone who has way more still struggling with that same feeling of enough, right? So when we think about this, we might want to say, well, what can we do with this knowledge now that we know that there might not be that one number that will actually make us happy? And to me, it's about trying to be the master of yourself and your future. And that's why I call this Master Your Money, because for most people, it's their money mastering them, right? So we want to take that back, and we want to make sure that the money we have, we are using well, right? So we want to talk about the things of spending plans and looking at where your assets are and looking at where your debts are. Of course, we do have to look at those numbers, but we also have to look at our view of those numbers. And that's a mentality of enough, right? And really figuring out how much is enough for us. And we'll go through these lightly in the next couple slides. But to me, this is really the answer to, if just getting more money isn't the answer, what is, right? And it's figuring out what to do with the money we have and what to do with the minds we have in the time we have. So first and foremost, and I apologize, that picture doesn't seem to be working now, using your money well. This is super important, right? How many times have you said, or have you heard someone say, where does all my money go? Right? We work hard, we earn money, but then at the end of the year, it doesn't seem like there's much left over, right? So if you've ever said this, or if you've ever thought that, the first step that you want to take is getting a sense of how much money is coming in and where it goes, right? And if you want a little exercise to practice this, take a look at your last pay stub and then multiply that net pay by how many paychecks you get each year. And that's a sense of what you have for income each year and what you have to work with, right? That's your pie that you get to divide up among all the important areas of your life. And then you can review receipts. If you pay for most things with credit cards, you can have a really good breakdown of where it's going and really get a sense of what's working well for you and what's not working well for you. This is something I help people do all the time. Step 2, consider a spending plan. This to me is such a revolutionary idea, and yet it's also so simple. We think about how we're going to spend our time, but we often don't intentionally allocate our money. We just pay the bills and take the check as things come up, right? So if you take a step back and you really say, well, where should my money be going? And there are some things that help with this, right? There's a standard rule about a 50-30-20 budget in which 50% of your money goes towards the things that you need, right? Your mortgage, your car payment, things like that, utilities. Then you'd have 30% of your money to go towards your wants, going out to eat when we can, right? Getting that takeout that's helping us through this incredibly unusual time. Right? Buying new clothes, taking trips. And that would leave 20% for savings and paying down debt so that we can continue building savings. This is a great benchmark for people who are trying to get an order, and it is just a benchmark. You can say, I want to do it a little bit differently. And you can also drill into those details, right? Within the 50% needs, most people would say less than 30% of your spending should be going towards housing. And I'd watch those numbers carefully too, because that tends to be the biggest impact on your total paycheck and finances. Because if your mortgage is that full 30% or your rent is that full 30%, you don't have much left over for furnishing or for maintenance and things that will likely come up in the time of having that housing. Finally, once you have a sense of the money coming in and how you want the money going out, it's important to set a time to review and reflect. This will be tough at first because besides me and other huge dorks like me, who really wants to spend their time sitting down and thinking about budgeting and planning their money? But it's really important to do. So once you make a habit of it, it actually gets easier. Like brushing your teeth or flossing, it's something you'll then do mindlessly. But you have to first set up that habit. So I'd ask yourself, number one, when are you going to review it? If you're first getting started, this might be something you want to do every day, right? Just check in with your goals and see if that's where your spending is going, right? If your goal is to take an awesome vacation as soon as we can travel, but your money is going to a lot of takeout, you might want to reflect and say, if I keep spending $20 every day times 365 days a year, that could have been a really awesome vacation had I looked at this differently and maybe only gotten takeout a few days a week. Right? So if people are just getting started to looking at this, daily is the best, but that's a lot of work. So once you build some habits, you can look at it weekly or monthly. I know that's exactly what I did and what most of the people I've worked with have had success in, starting daily and then eventually just checking in once a month. Some people like to check on the first day of the month because it's a good reminder. Other people like to check when their bills come in because that's a good reminder. Whatever works for you. When you're reflecting, make sure you have a plan. What will you do if the numbers are not aligned with your targets? Right? To me, this is an opportunity for some self-care. Don't beat yourself up about it. Instead, just reflect and say, how can I do differently next month? Right? How can I change to move in the direction that I want to go? And this might not be a decision you're making alone, right? The final question when you're thinking about reviewing and reflecting is, who else do I want to include when I'm making this decision, right? Do I have to include a partner, right? Should I include my husband or my wife, right? Should I be including my children, whether younger or adult children, in these decisions? I think that's a great opportunity to really teach everyone about, like Laurie was saying, independence and how to really stand on your own and understand why we can and can't have some things and what works best for our future and our vision together. We also want to look at having a mentality of enough, right? So when we were talking about it before, number one, it's knowing your numbers. And now it's also looking at those numbers and just saying, now I feel confident. Now it's enough. And this works in both directions, right? There are some people who spend more easily, and that can be really stressful when the bills come in. And there are some people who are naturally good at saving, and that can be really stressful too because they have trouble spending, right? So what I like to recommend is run the numbers, check them twice, right? Just like Santa and his list, and then have some fun, right? Once you have that plan, you should feel more comfortable in that plan. Again, I apologize. Apparently, working on multiple channels alone, you can't see the fun pictures, but the important information is there. Also, when you're looking back and reflecting, when you're thinking about how much is enough and getting comfortable, I recommend taking the chance to step off the treadmill. Now, I already disclosed myself as a huge dork. I'm going to give you a fun behavioral finance term, and it's called the hedonic treadmill. This is something that they've studied time and time again, and they've found how quickly do you readjust to a change, either good or bad? And usually it's moments to a few days, right? So you could get a big, amazing raise, and you might think, once I get that raise, I'll be happy. But within a few days, you feel normal, right? Because we adapt really quickly. It's this amazing thing about humans, but it can be really difficult when we get into a cycle of consumerism, right? So what often happens, and I know this not only from my work in finance, but also from my high school years working in retail, is that we get a rush of adrenaline when we buy something, but it quickly fades. And your thought could be, well, clearly it didn't mean that much to me, so I shouldn't buy more things. But that's not the natural tendency. The thought is, I felt really good briefly once, and to get that feeling again, I have to do that action again. Right? So I feel good when I buy something new, but it doesn't last. So now I need to buy something else new. And that pattern of always seeking out that next purchase can be like a treadmill that keeps us working hard and takes us away from our bigger long-term goals. Right? So if you feel yourself falling into that one-click next day delivery mentality, take a step back. And if you say, this is in line with my budget, it does make me happy, keep on doing it. But if you take a step back and say, maybe this is what's causing the stress. Maybe this is why I have some problems with that, or maybe this is why I can't have the bigger things I want, like being able to pay for my kids' college education in full or in part, or take a nice vacation, right? To me, whatever choice you make, if it's an informed choice, you'll feel better about it than if it's one that's more impulsive, right? So feel free to try to take a moment, take a deep breath, and step off that treadmill. It can help to try to avoid social comparisons. I know we're on Facebook Live, but that can be one of the tricks, right? If we always see our friends having something new, that can really push us towards always buying more too. They had done another study, I won't show you all the details, about what happens not to the lottery winners, but to the neighbors of the lottery winners. You might not think being the neighbor of a lottery winner would have a big impact on your life. But what they found was a sharp increase in the number of bankruptcies and debt of the neighbors. Because even though the neighbors hadn't won the lottery, because they saw their neighbors buying new stuff and enjoying it, it made them eager to do so too, even though they didn't have the assets. Right? So this is what we're talking about when we talk about this treadmill effect, keeping up with the Joneses. Right? If you have a moment, try to step away from that behavior to really focus on what is actually important to you. If you do want to spend money on things, one of the things that can make you happier is buying experiences, right? Travel tends to actually make people happier longer, particularly if you're not doing it alone, but you're doing it with your loved ones. So if you are trying to buy some happiness, it can be done, right? Buying trips and buying time with your family. I am so sorry. These pictures looked perfect last night. I have some technical difficulties. Also buying things for your family, right? Experiences together, whether trips, a game night, a night out together. Those tend to buy more happiness than simply buying a thing that will only have a short blip in your increase in happiness. Finally, as we're getting back into sports, remember to defend your money, right? You work really, really hard for your money, and you probably spend longer earning that money than you spend thinking about where it goes or what to spend it on. And that's something I really want to reverse, right? To me, when I think about money, I think about it like football, right? That ball is what you need to achieve your goals. It's also what everyone else needs to achieve their goals. Right? So salespeople and marketers, they're really good at trying to get that ball and achieve their goals. They're not bad people, right? They're just playing a different game. So make sure that you're being really intentional, right? With that mindset of enough. Do I really need this? Is this going to help me achieve my broader goals and support me and my family? Or is it just an impulse that will feel good, but ultimately pull me away from my goals in that end zone? Right? So when we're thinking about money and that mentality enough, it's thinking about those social comparisons and trying not to fall into the lotto neighbor's demise, right? It's buying the things that actually do make us happy, spending time with our loved ones. And it's really protecting the money that we have and making sure our money goes towards our goals rather than other people's. So when you're thinking about all of this, it's super important to think in the short term, the intermediate term, and the long term, right? All the little decisions, all the purchases you make today and this week and this month add up into what you'll end up having or not having in the future. And that's why it is important to plan for your future, to try to look at, if I keep doing this, where will I end up? And to me, a lot of times when I work with people, what they're trying to get isn't the best investment return. Right? You should go to a financial advisor to manage your money for that. It's the peace of mind of knowing I have a plan, I'm making decisions that will align with that plan, and I'm on a path that will help me achieve my goals. And like that peace of mind is actually one of the best things that money can buy. So make sure that you don't get caught up in the day-to-day, which is so easy to do, especially nowadays when we seem to be working harder than ever, right? But taking that step back, carving out some time for yourself. One woman I spoke with, she checks in on it once a year, and she does it on her birthday. She does her physical, she goes to the dentist, and he checks her finances. That's not how I would want to spend my birthday, and I love this stuff. But maybe doing it the day before or after your birthday, right? As we recognize, okay, I'm getting older. I have to make sure I'm planning for my future. I'm going to do the responsible thing, and then I'm going to enjoy. Or I partied, and now I'll be the adult I have to be. Make sure that when you're making that plan, you do it together, right? Laurie was alluding to this earlier, like she knew where I was going. Right? Your plan isn't just your plan, it's your family's plan. It affects your parents, it affects your spouse, it affects your kids. So talk about it. Right? It can be awkward at first, but once you get used to it, having those conversations about being independent, recognizing that a man isn't a plan and a woman also isn't a plan either. Right? You want to make sure you know how to be independent, how to enjoy your life, how to have freedom now and forever. So today, what I want you to do is just think about one step you can take, right? Like we talked about a lot, and we could talk about a lot, right? This covers so very much, right? But I want you to start with just one step. What's one thing you can do today that will take you in the direction of where you want to go? And I really want you to think about this. This is built into this time. You have this moment. You're here with me right now. What is one thing you will do? And if you need some ideas, I can tell you some of the most common targets fall into one of these three categories. One is get organized, right? If you're someone who's been money avoidant, right? Who needs to talk about money? Unfortunately, all of us, right? So let's do it. Just make a list of your different accounts. Right? What credit cards do I have? What income do I have? What investment accounts do I have? Just get organized. That could be your step one today. Or if you want a baby step one, write down one of your accounts today and then do another one tomorrow, right? And just baby step it until you have a nice organized list. This can be super important as a family because sometimes spouses don't know what the family has in general. And if something were to happen, they wouldn't know where to find those things. I spoke with one woman whose husband had passed and only his name was on the electric bill. So she wasn't able to pay it easily. So she not only lost her husband, she also lost power. That's insane, right? And it's something that could be avoided if we talk about these things and make sure we're making decisions together and getting organized. Right? So that could be your step one. For other people, it's get saving, right? They have a sense of where their money is going, but they're enjoying today and worrying about tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes, right? So your first step could be, I'm just going to put a little bit away, right? This is also sometimes a big step for people who love investing, right? Because they think cash is trash, right? So they put all their money into investments, especially in a market like now when everything's doing so well. And then when the market turns and the economy turns, they might be in a tough position because they don't have any liquidity. So always make sure that you have some kind of emergency savings. If you're a small business owner, make sure it's both for you and another one separately for your business, right? It's just a really good idea to help you stay up in a down situation. Right? So maybe it's just, I want to start having a separate savings account, or I want to start putting some cash aside. Right? Or maybe your plan is to get started, right? Maybe you haven't started investing in your children's future, in your retirement, for your own goals. Right? In that case, it's just opening an account or maybe just researching accounts. Right? So if you need an idea, here are a bunch of them. I'm happy to talk in depth as well about any questions you might have. I'm saving plenty of time for your questions. But right now, you don't have to write it in the chat, but you do have to write it down for you and for your future. One thing, just one thing that you're going to do today. And I'm even going to give you the time to do it. Right? We're going to end early so that I can give you both this knowledge and this time to live your best life and master your money. So I'm here to answer your questions today. and I cannot wait to hear them. I want to know what questions you have. I want to know what you want to learn about money, and I want you to ask me how to help you master it. Right? You have my email, you have my website if you're shy and you don't want to ask in this group setting, but hopefully you feel comfortable asking now. Laurie, I bet we already have a few questions coming in.
Yes, well, we have some questions and some great comments, relative to, how people are feeling, when they look at $100 bill, lots of great, interesting answers around, security, breathing room, stability. Yes, the mindset of, never being satisfied and always thinking, that more will be better and that if we only, get to that point, then we're good. But, your commentary about the dopamine rush, I think is so amazing. And that's why I love the fact that you're calling this, your money mentality, because you're not just going through a series of moves, if you will. You're talking about how to ask yourself the tough question and kind of get under it, right? To have some discovery about how your mind operates, what your brain does to you subconsciously when you don't even realize it, right?
Absolutely.
So we got quite a few comments on that. Rebecca, she says, I love the idea of a spending plan that helps me use my money. The word budget feels restrictive, but a thoughtful spending plan sounds good.
I agree. And actually, Rebecca, you'll love that I used a saving plan to help me achieve one of my dreams. You saw earlier, I'm an avid traveler, but I'm also a financial person who is surrounded by people who are often under saving, right? So there's like a huge occupational hazard in this thought, like, I have to save all my money. I might not have enough. And by running the numbers myself, I was able to give myself permission to take one amazing vacation every year. And that's how I've seen 36 countries, and I'm still on track for retirement. Right. So I agree with you. It's really liberating. It's about being empowered to enjoy your money today while still planning to be successful tomorrow too. Because if you like traveling now, you're going to want to keep traveling in retirement. You're not going to suddenly get boring when you get older.
Yeah. The other thing that I love that you said was, no shame, no blame.
Yes.
People beat themselves up for everything, right? And when you beat yourself up, you naturally want to avoid it, right? Like, okay, this is going to be full. I'm going to be really mad at myself for not doing what I need to do. I'm a loser. How did I get myself into this? But I love the comment that no shame, no blame, and it's never too late to start, right?
Yeah, and you'll laugh. Like another great example. So, because I've done all of this work myself as well as helping everyone else, I could never, be a critic like that and not do the work myself. So when I was in my early 20s, I did a review of my spending. I was like, am I really spending $100 a month on going out for drinks? Like that's a lot of money to spend on alcohol, and I want to start getting healthier now that I'm getting older, right, in my 20s. And so I gave myself this amazing trick. And I said, if you can spend $100 on alcohol, then you have the money to get a massage every single month. So I found this place that had massages, and it was only $50 for an hour. And I still know a place that does that today if you want to know. It's a great place in Rhode Island. She's amazing. Anyways, I told myself, if you go the whole month without buying any alcohol, you treat yourself to a massage. And that way I saved $50 and I got to get a massage. And it was so much healthier and I enjoyed life more.
Yeah, that is amazing. If you think about going out and also the stuff you bring into the house, it just kind of adds up. Maria says, I love the idea of vacation versus a material item. What do you recommend to take into consideration to avoid overspending?
Absolutely. So one of the things I love to do is get into the weeds. Right. So I like to really look at the details. So I mentioned before a very high level 50-30-20 plan when it comes to your budget. What I like to dig into is when it comes to housing, right? Like how much do I need to spend? Right. This is the bare minimum cost for housing, in your area or in a neighborhood nearby. And then if I spend extra, like that's a combination of my need and my want, right? So then I know that's money that could be spent towards a vacation, right? If I changed my housing. The same thing comes to clothing, right? There's an importance of looking good and professional, and then there's having the latest trends, right? So like when it comes to overspending, I like having that range, if that helps, right? Like what's the bare minimum? Like you probably need 10 new articles of clothing every year to just look put together, right? Buying more than that would be coming out of my vacation budget, right? There's going to be a limited pool for any of the fun spending. Same thing when it comes to like the vacation itself, right? You can either really plan it out well and say, okay, I'm going to spend more money on attractions this day and less money on the hotel, or vice versa. I'll get a hotel that's nice that has attractions there, and then I won't spend money elsewhere, right? I like looking at the details and giving myself those trade-offs, right? If I'm going to be at Disney all day, do I need to also stay at a luxury resort? No, I'm just going to come home and pass out after a long day at Disney. Right? So hopefully that answers your question on like overspending, right? Like know what you have in your budget. You've done your saving goals, you've paid your bills, you know what's extra, and then divide it among what's important to you. Could be clothing, it could be a trip. Within the trip, it could be the activity, it could be the hotel, right? Just looking at each of those things, because a lot of people will get the vacation mentality, right? Like, I'm on vacation, don't worry about it. And then they have that buyer's remorse afterwards. So I think a little bit of planning in the beginning goes a long way towards saying, I set aside this money. I know I have it. I can enjoy guilt-free. That's what I want everyone to do. Enjoy your life guilt-free.
Yeah. No shame, no blame, no guilt.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
Do you set up a separate account for your travel?
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's at a different bank, or like how do you hide it sufficiently? When I say hide, I don't really mean hide.
No, but you're right. Hide is the right word, because you have to hide it from yourself, right? Because you're like, what's there is mine. So back in the day, they used to talk about like an envelope system or a jar system, but nobody uses cash anymore, at least very few people I know. So now I call it electronic envelopes, right? So if you have a company that you work for a company, if you're not an entrepreneur, you have the opportunity to direct your money to more than one account, and it doesn't cost anything. So you could tell your company, I want you to split my paycheck to these 2 accounts or to these 3 accounts. And you can already have it set up with that bigger goal in mind, right? Like 20% of my money is going here, 10% of my money is going here. I do like using separate accounts. If you want to be really tricky and really hide it from yourself, one of my favorite tricks for my emergency savings, right? Like this is the real, like you're in trouble money. You need a prayer and a secret account. I have a secret account. I have it at a separate bank. I do not get the statements in the mail. I do not look at it electronically often. It is there only when I'm like, oh no, this is bad. I need money. And I'm like, wait, I have it. And I forgot it was there because I didn't see it. And now it's there when I need it. So Laurie, you were spot on with hiding, right? We have to outfox ourselves sometimes.
Yeah. Well, again, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about mentality.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to, get underneath the mentality, really understand yourself before you get into the picayune aspects of, financial management. Because, if you don't have the right mindset, then you're really not going to know what's driving you and your spending. And again, the shame and the guilt. What are your thoughts about, checking your credit rating from time to time? Is that an important thing in your opinion?
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is something you should do at least annually. If you've had trouble with it, you can check it as often as 3 times a year. So each of the 3 major credit agencies will give you a free check once a year. So you should absolutely check once a year. I generally do that in January or February because those are boring cold months anyways. Like what else are you doing but preparing for something more fun? So I like to do that annually. But if you've had some trouble or if you're trying to improve your credit, what you can do is check every 4 months, because you technically have 3 free checks a year if you go to each agency. And then you can also find the differences between how they report it. which I, as a finance dork, find fascinating, and I offer to all of you.
Yeah. So can you really change anything that's in your credit report?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find any errors. So a lot of companies nowadays use that information to help you set up accounts. So when you get those like random questions like how tall does your license say you are and what addresses have you been associated with? That's all information from those same records. And if there's something off, not only can it create problems with your credit, but it can also create problems with setting up future accounts. So it's good housekeeping. It's not on a gorgeous day like this, but like tomorrow, if it rains, that'd be a great day to kind of get that done and just make sure there are no errors. And then, of course, the decisions you make have a big impact on your score. We could do a whole separate hour just on that, right? Because FICO scores are always changing. It is a secret formula. They won't tell you the exact calculation, but there are a lot of things we know about how to improve it.
Yeah. You were talking about the rush, the dopamine rush. I'm wondering what you think about Amazon Prime and how easy it is to just be on your phone and scrolling and say, oh, I think I'd like that lawnmower, or I think I'd like that, whatever, right? That new pair of shoes. And all you have to do is go, it's made, Amazon makes it really easy to
Too easy, yeah.
Thing with one click, right? Just one click, and it shows up on your doorstep the next day. But the dopamine rush of just saying, wow, I just bought something with one click, I imagine that turns the brain into a hot mess too, right?
Yeah, you can probably already guess my thoughts on it and the fact that I will never be sponsored by Amazon. That's okay. I have different goals in life. One of the things I recommend people do is not have your credit card saved in any website for that one click for two reasons. Number one, for information security. Once you've been hacked, once your identity has been threatened, I've met people, right? Thousands of people. Obviously, I've met a few people who fell into that situation. It is almost impossible to reclaim your life. And the fact that you might be trading that for the ease of one click alone, I get very concerned about. But number two, I also get concerned that it's easier to say yes than no, right? You've taken out that opportunity to think, right? It's not just with the credit card where a swipe could be $20 or $2,000, right? When we were using cash, when you had to count out each bill, you would feel it, right? And that timing was enough to slow you down and make you reconsider, right? This virtual world makes it really difficult to achieve your broader dreams and your bigger goals because it's too easy to get your short-term impulses, right? It's so much easier to eat a candy bar than a salad. It's so much easier to buy something shiny and new. And Laurie, you'll find this interesting because obviously I read all of these things. There is a secret segment of shoppers called drunk or otherwise influenced shoppers who around 10 or 11 p.m. at night, usually on Fridays or Saturdays, they're buying things and they don't even remember that they bought it until something shows up and they're like, oh, magic presents. This is great. And they tend to be goofy things you absolutely don't need. And it's a big segment. It's a multi-billion-dollar segment of shopping. Yeah. So I highly recommend if you have bigger goals, if you don't have Warren Buffett amounts of money, to seriously defend yourself against those sneaky tricks to get your money from you.
Mm-hmm. Well, Warren Buffett has all that money because he doesn't fall into that trap, and
he still uses coupons. There was a story of him and Bill Gates going to McDonald's, and Warren Buffett pulled out coupons. I was like, that's my man. He's amazing.
He still lives in the same house too that he grew up in, I believe.
Drives an old Lincoln.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. A lot of times we think like you have to spend money to make money. You have to look like you have money. You have to take risk. But if you watch all the people who have money, or at least most of them, right? Elon Musk will always be an anomaly when it comes to any example. But most of the wealthy people are actually very cautious, very pragmatic, very frugal, right? It's the people in between who are trying to look as if that actually tend to struggle in trying to look like they have more. One of the wealthiest people I ever met was blue collar guy, ripped jeans, and sweet smile. And you would have never known it.
Yeah,
You know?
interesting. So we are nearing the end of our time together, but I want to ask the folks that are in the chat if they want to just weigh in with one thing, one baby step that they are going to take today, right? We want to put today on it, right?
Absolutely.
What one thing, one baby step, to get yourself sort of into this mode where you're going to peel away anything that's in your mind that's preventing you from living your best life and your best dreams and whatnot. So, what is the most common thing, Jennifer, that you hear folks say that their very first baby step is going to be?
Yeah, so I don't want to be self-serving, but fortunately, a lot of people say, like, I want to work with you, please help me, right? And that makes me really happy because I work with people as a one-off. I am not a financial advisor, so I don't do that. I'll manage your accounts for year after year. My favorite thing to do is give people that one thing because oftentimes it can be really overwhelming to choose that one thing when you've got so many conflicting priorities. Right?
Mhm.
If it's not me, talk to someone else that you care about or trust, right? You can get free information from your loved ones if you're willing to open up and talk about money, right? So it might just be, sitting down with your partner tonight and say, like, what do we want to achieve? What are some of our goals? And if you do that, like, reward yourselves for doing that, right? Like, have your favorite dinner, get takeout from your favorite place, have a nice dessert. Get that dopamine from doing the right thing.
Mhm. Yeah, and again, it's never too late to start, and
Ever.
yeah,
Today is the best day. Today's
yeah.
always better than tomorrow, even though yesterday would have been better, right? Like we can handle today.
Well, you have to play the movie forward. What if something devastating happened? And on top of whatever was devastating, you had to sort of unravel your finances too. You
Right.
really be in a difficult pickle. But Rebecca, she has responded. She says, "I am going to reset up my automatic transfer to my savings account in my bank today." So she has highlighted today in caps. Love
Go,
that.
Rebecca.
That is
I'm
a
so proud of you.
yeah, right.
That's a great one. And it's funny, Laurie, you were saying, what if something awful happened? But I also think about the reverse, right? What if nothing happens? What if I just keep spending like this and I have to work forever? Right? Like that's equally terrifying. I love my job. I always have loved the work I've done. And I plan to work as long as I can, but no one can work forever. Right? So we do have to have some kind of other plan.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Deb, she's really done some introspection here. She says, "I've written down how much I need to get my 4 kids through college." Whoa, that's probably that's probably quite the number. "And I'm going to figure out how much that I am spending being social per month." So, meaning, I guess, going out to dinner, or being with friends, or throwing money away that might not be necessary, and cut that in half. So she's being very specific. She's being implementing a SMART goal, a very specific, which is to cut that in half. And she says, "I'd also love to travel and would like to hide some money monthly, hide from herself," she says.
That's so good. I love that, Deb. And I can share with you giving up expenses for going out with friends doesn't mean giving up your friends, right? Like you can walk together, you can do a picnic together. That's one of my favorite tricks when I was in my 20s and trying to save money. I actually was really open and vulnerable with my friends. And I said, "Do you mind if we don't go out to eat? I'm trying to save some money. Can we do a picnic instead?" And that vulnerability and sincerity was met with gratitude because they told me, "Oh, I'm trying to do the same thing." Right? So sometimes you can be this amazing agent for change, not only for yourself, but for those you love the most. How powerful is that?
Right. The old thing where everybody's thinking the same thing, but no one wants to go out on a limb and be vulnerable and say, "This isn't serving me. Let's think about something else. Let's be creative." And
Exactly.
there's a whole lot of that going on. So we are at the top of the hour, Jennifer.
Already.
just been amazing. And, what I've taken from it is the idea that, that you really need to understand yourself and understand what's holding you back in order to get ahead. And some of the strategies that you've shared are just so wise. And I really have loved everything about your presentation today. Tell our viewers and listeners how they can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. So you can reach out to me directly by email. I've made it as easy as possible. My email is jennifer@jennifersahady.com. You can reach out to me through my website. It's jennifersahady.com. You can find me on LinkedIn under the same, or on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok at Master Money with Jennifer. And I'd be really happy to hear from you, even if it's just your successes, right? So Rebecca and Deb, you shared what you're working on. If a week from now you said, Jen, I did it, and you just sent me that short message, you would make my whole day, because I really believe in all of you, and I want you to have your best life because you deserve it.
Hey, we've got one more comment from Deborah, and she says, starting to really plan out what is most important, leading to my future dreams, right? So
absolutely. It's not those impulse buys and convenience buys, right? Like, there's bigger, more important things going on. And when you know it and you hold it in your heart fiercely, you can get it. And I believe in you. So thank you for sharing that, Deb.
And Rebecca says, thank you for helping me master my money mindset, Jennifer. So spell Sahady, just in case anybody's listening and they're not 100% sure that they've heard it correctly. I always want to make sure that we are catering to the visual and the audio at the same time.
That is so thoughtful, Laurie. Yeah, so Jennifer is spelled the common way, Jennifer, and Sahady is S as in Sam, A as in apple, H as in happy, A as in apple, D as in dog, and Y as in yellow.
Yeah, you've said that a few times, I can tell.
I have. I don't use any of the military terms. I learned them and I thought, I'd rather say happy and yellow dog. It makes me think of a Labrador, and I just get happy.
Yes, well, you seem happy and you seem very, relaxed and content, and you're in a great place. And I know you've helped all of us to get into a great place today. And we are so grateful to you. So with that, we will say goodbye right now, and want to thank everybody also for participating and sharing what you're thinking and giving Jennifer some great feedback as well. So we'll see you next time, everybody. This has been episode number 123 of Chamber TV. Take care. Bye.
Bye, everyone.